We are going to talk about nutrition labels. Because if you're eating whole food plant-based, it's pretty easy, right? An apple, put it into your calorie tracker, Chronometer, MyFitnessPal. Cool, you ate an apple. It has, I don't know, 40 calories, depending on the size of your apple, 0 fat, 0 protein, 10 grams of carbs, or however many, 20. When you buy prepackaged foods, which is the majority of the foods, like even this is a 0-calorie soda, it still has to have a nutrition label on it. You've seen them in the store. Basically, the thing you need to remember about nutrition labels is anything that is on the front of your package does not matter. So this says bubbly, wonderful, low calorie, magic, etc. The only thing that matters is when you flip your container over, right? And it's for anything, for spices, for pasta, for chips, for healthy foods, for unhealthy foods, quote unquote, if you still label your foods in any way, which I disapprove of, but it's your life. You flip over that wonderful container, and the only thing that should matter to you is the nutrition facts information. This label recently got updated, and you actually can download this exact breakdown, which is not my favorite, but it's still kind of helpful to help you read the label. So let's go through the label in the way that I read it at the store. If you have any suggestions on how you read labels at the store, post them in the group chat, or if you had no idea what the hell to do with this information, ask questions in the group chat. Okay, so first and foremost, I look at the serving size and the calories. You do need to look at those two things together because serving size, for example, of super low calorie gums or other prepackaged foods can be so small that there will be less than 5 calories per serving, in which case in the United States, the food can be labeled calorie-free, which is not true. There can be 4 calories instead of 5, or like 3.5 calories, because the serving can be like 1/8 of a teaspoon. Oh, I'll give you an example. Your spray for the pan, your oil spray, probably has 0 calories in it. Check the serving size. It's like 1/4 of a spray. Is it a calorie-free food? No, it's literally a container full of oil. Oil is 120 calories per tablespoon. So a normal person would go, and they would spray a pan for a couple seconds, and they would have a little less oil than if they poured it and then took a paper towel to like spread it around the pan and maybe wipe some excess off. They would maybe have a little bit less from the can, but it's still the same amount of calories because it's still oil. So stuff like this really baffles me, that people would check the calories but not check the serving size. So please always check them combined. Also, the recent addition has been now nutritional facts must say how many grams per serving there are, which is super, super useful to us, to people who before just had no idea what a half a cup of a certain food is. And just for your information, volume measurements are imprecise. So if you're still tracking your food and you're not measuring grams on the food scale, which may sound intense, but it's literally just your food scale. You put your food on it, turn it on, it shows you how many calories it is. Sorry, how many grams it is, and you can be like, oh, okay. My rice that is ready made, there's 200 grams. You multiply that by sorry, you multiply the amount of calories in 100 grams of rice by 2, and there's your calories, there's your macronutrients. Anyways, the reason why volume measurements are imprecise is because I can pack that cup really jammed with rice, or I can kind of pack it loosely, or some people, I've had some clients who would track dry oats versus cooked oats. Some of them, so now in all my meal plans, I would write, dry oats, because I don't know how much water they would want to add there, right? Originally, like grains, I guess I assume are tracked dry, and proteins are cooked and then tracked after that. such as, your tofus, your seitans, if you eat meat and fish, your animal proteins. I guess most people track them cooked because they don't want to dirty the food scale, but it would be still more precise to probably track them not cooked, because like tofu baked weighs a lot less, even though when it's firmer, when it's already baked, it can have more calories. Oh boy, I'm going on such a rant. Anyways, how to read the rest of the nutrition label. Check how many calories, how many serving size, how big the serving size, how many servings per container. For example, if you get a bag of chips and it has 2.5 servings, like, are you really going to eat it in 2.5 times, 2.5 sittings? Or are you just going to down the whole thing? Like, I'm going to probably down the whole thing if I get chips, just because that's the kind of person I am, where if I buy a pint of ice cream, it doesn't matter how many servings. For me, it's one serving. It's going to be gone the time that I sit down and open that jar. So if you have foods like that, I guess if you're trying to lose weight, the option may be not to buy them. I'm not trying to lose weight, so I'm okay eating a jar of ice cream, once a week. But if it's every day, could be a problem. Not necessarily for my weight, but for the amounts of total fat that I consume. So I try to first look at the proteins and make sure there is enough protein per calorie for me. So you can take protein amount, 3 grams right here in this label, multiply that by 4 calories per gram, and then divide that amount. So 3 times 4 is 12. 12 divided by 90. So we get 13.3% protein. I wouldn't say it's a high protein food. Okay. I would say if it's closer to like 50% protein, that's a high protein food for me. But a lot of the times you would see on the front, it says high protein food, and you flip it over and there's like 3 grams of protein. You're like, where is it high protein, right? Carbs, you can do the same. You can multiply that by 4. So 13 times 4, 52, divided by 90, 57% carbs. So that's how you determine the percentage of carb for your food. Fats have 9 calories per gram. So let that small number not deceive you, because then you multiply 3 by 9 and end up with 27, and divided by 90, that is 30. It is 30% fat in this food. Very curious what this is. Anyways, what else am I going to look at? I'm probably going to look at fiber. So I see that out of these 13 grams of carbs, they added 10 grams of sugars, which could be a good thing for me to eat right before workout. It's a little too much fat pre-workout, but then I prefer. But there's a lot of sugars, 7 grams added sugars. So it's going to absorb into my body quickly. It's going to increase my insulin, and insulin spikes my growth hormone, which helps me, which helps the mechanisms in my body turn on to grow muscle, right? So growth hormone is anabolic, insulin is anabolic, which means it helps you grow muscle. That now, again, women, I know you're gonna get scared when I say those words, but growing muscle is not scary. The fact that you eat sugar and then you're gonna go to the gym and really move around and really put that sugar to work and do your strength training, that means your strength training is going to be effective. You're going to have energy for it. And if you have enough patience, you're actually going to more likely build more muscle than if you did this on empty stomach. If you did it on empty stomach, you probably would have destroyed muscle instead. So added sugar, not always bad, even though this wonderful label says too much sugar contributes to weight gain and increased risk of diseases, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Doesn't say anything about fat. Well, no, it says can increase risk of weight problems. Yeah, because it's high calorie. So yeah, I guess a balance is a good thing, right? What else are we going to look at? Dietary fiber, super important. Not going to go into soluble, insoluble, either or. Just know that fiber takes your body, if it's soluble, It takes your body more energy to digest rather than your simple sugars, your simple carbohydrates. So your complex carbohydrates usually have more fiber. So if, for example, a potato says per however many grams of potato, 100, it has however many grams of fiber. That most of that fiber in fruits and veggies is in the skin. Eat your skin, eat your veggie skin, buy organic or clean your veggies really well if you're afraid of any kind of preservatives on the skin, and consume your fiber. I would obviously recommend to consume it from whole foods instead of dietary supplements. I do have some dudes who would just, eat a bunch of animal protein, and then they would eat like a fiber supplement. Why? If you can have any fruit and vegetables that you want. We live in such an abundant society that the majority of us, especially people watching this video, probably can afford to. And a lot of them, naturally packaged, ready to eat. Don't have to be cooked. Could be lightly steamed to increase, to ease out your digestion. What else are we going to look at? Sodium. Everybody's afraid of sodium. Ooh, low sodium everything. Well, have you noticed that if you lower the sodium in something, it doesn't taste as good, so they have to add sugar. They have to add the fats, or it tastes like cardboard. Basically, anything on the front of the package, if it says low fat, low sugar, low sodium, just flip it over. They added something else most of the time. So if you're not eating whole food plant-based, if you're eating prepackaged foods, and it's just labeled left and right how healthy it is, I would be scared. Or I wouldn't be scared, I would be curious. What did they add to compensate that health food? Unless you're like at a co-op where everything is kind of healthy and kind of, with less sugar, with no high fructose corn syrup. Yeah. All right. Cool. Types of fat. We didn't cover that. So if you're vegan, you don't really have to worry about saturated fat. It is a huge risk of heart disease. A lot of my clients come with the goal of fixing their blood work numbers. So if you haven't tested blood work for a while, I recommend you do that soon. And look at your triglycerides, look at your blood pressure, look at your HDL, which is your good cholesterol, and LDL, which is your bad cholesterol, and the ratio of such. If your LDL is too high, saturated fat is probably to blame. What do? You eat less fats, less added fats in general, even if you're vegan. Like I am vegan. I've gone, between super health minded to kind of junk food vegan to super health minded. Now I'm kind of somewhere in between, like I eat healthy, but I do like to go out every once in a while as well. If I travel too much, and if I eat too much vegan soul food, my LDL numbers go up. So it's not just the vegans who struggle with blood work. If you eat like crap, you can eat, fries and drink vodka and Coca-Cola and be vegan and be in not such good health. Okay. Sorry. Trans fats. Oh boy, I would prefer your food has none of that. Why? Because they say, oh, saturated fat is unhealthy because it's like animal fat, right? Let's have the plant fat. It has the added oils, from fruits and vegetables. Well, sounds great, but the problem is if it was liquid at a certain temperature to make it shelf stable, to make it hardened at a lower temperature, people have learned how to hydrogenate the fat. So your Crisco, your palm oil is that. It was meant to be in one state, we turned it into the other state. Now that's the stuff that makes your chips and cookies last forever with their expiration date. It is absolutely the most terrible thing for you. So even though usually trans fat is plant-based, we still need to watch out for that stuff. And it's not really good for the environment either. If you look how they manufacture plant palm oil, you'll be pretty upset. So if you want to do some further research and share the insights on how terrible the palm oil industry is, please drop that in the chat. I'd be curious what you've learned. Cool. We are moving to micronutrients and allergens. Very handy section. Most food labels right now have the allergen section, which will have gluten, wheat, soy. It's broken down by animal products. It doesn't just say, you know, animal products, right? It says dairy, it says milk. Some vegans don't notice that it has, like, you know, milk if it has a whey, for example, right? They don't look for it. But in the allergen section, it would definitely say milk products or dairy, right? It will say, well, if it has meat, it's probably pretty clear. They probably don't shy away from it. But if it has some sort of like fish sauce, could be a little obscure, so worth checking. And ingredient section, you probably know and look at it. I would say if it's more than like 5 or 10 ingredients, if there's a bunch of stuff, if it's not spices, you could be like, ugh. If it has a lot of ingredients, not necessarily bad. I used to say like, oh, if it has a lot of ingredients, maybe it's, you know, too processed. No, not necessarily. They can just add a bunch of spices. A lot of good and natural foods have, you know, some natural preservatives. It's totally fine. You know, such as citric acid. You could have natural sugar replacements, such as your monk fruit, your stevia, etc. There's so many right now. So anyways, ingredient section is long to read sometimes. Sometimes it's not. I would look still at like the first 5. So the ingredients, one thing I would remember is they are ordered in the decrease in the number of, sorry, the order is in the decreasing quantity, right? So if I have, I don't know, Nutella, and you would think ingredient number 1 is hazelnuts, well, no, it's actually sugar. Ingredient number 2 is like peanut oil or peanut butter or something. Ingredient number like 4 is hazelnuts. So tells you something. Sorry for the cough. I was sick recently. Very happy I recovered in time to record this because the scripts have been written and I was just waiting to be able to speak. Cool. Your micronutrients. There usually is a long list. Okay. So you can look at your daily values. Yeah, that's helpful-ish information. Right now, I would focus on macronutrients because if you eat enough fruits and veggies and herbs and seeds and nuts and legumes and pulses, if you eat primarily whole food plant-based with a lot of variety, you're probably going to be fine on the majority of your micronutrients. And of course, do not forget to take your daily multivitamin. Do not forget to take your vitamin D, especially in the winter. You can also take magnesium and zinc or ZMA before bed. Please check with your doctor before taking any vitamins, but that's normally what I recommend. There's no need to take creatine, but it doesn't harm. It's the most well-researched supplement for athletes or for people who don't do much. It does help not just muscle regeneration and growth and recovery, but also brain function, especially for vegans. And if you're vegan, definitely take your B12. And if you're not vegan, but you're after age 52, definitely take your B12. So it doesn't matter how you eat. If you're older, help your brain function a little bit and do take your B12. All right, I think that is a wrap for today. Again, if you have any questions, drop them down the group chat and I will talk to you tomorrow.